Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Monday. My name is Jesse Greer, and I'm the Vice President of Multifamily and Investments at Avis & Young. And today, like always, I have a very special guest with me, Dan Lorenz. Dan, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I couldn't have a better opportunity to talk with someone that's so involved with the market right now. So, Dan Lorenz, you own and are the president of TriEx Strategies.
Correct.
And TriEx Strategies is a full-service basically a full-service real estate company, which we'll dive into here in a second. And not only that, but you're very active in different organizations that are out there associated with real estate, like, for example, BANN, Builders Association of Northern Nevada, and NAIOP, which is the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties. But it's not just industrial and office, as we'll learn here in a second. So, Dan, once again, thank you for joining me today, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about you.
So I'm the owner of TriEx Strategies. We have three divisions. Basically, we're a sister company of Action Properties, which is our property management division, TriEx Development, which is our construction side, and TriEx Strategies, which is our investment side. We've got a little over 100 units in the marketplace currently that we've aggregated over the last 3 to 5 years. Currently looking to do some more transactions as we speak. Hopefully we're able to get those completed. Basically, we go in, like many people, and do the rehab after the fact, but we're able to do it all internally because we've got the contractor's license and the ability to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
now, you're also involved, like I mentioned, in these organizations. So
yes.
Explain to us what your role is in these organizations and how you provide your expertise and feedback.
Yeah, so about a year ago, we started the multifamily committee, which both NAIOP and BANN had expressed some interest in being a part of. Rather than having two committees be created for the same thing and all of us go to two meetings, we basically open it up to members of both. So it's a joint committee.
Yeah.
So we've got BANN members can join, NAIOP members can join and participate in this committee. We meet once a month to discuss everything that's going on in the multifamily space.
And there's a lot going on right now. But before we dive into that, you know, this is one of the reasons why I enjoy getting out into the marketplace and interviewing people like yourself, Dan, because of the fact that you're not only out there acquiring properties, you're managing properties. You have your own construction company and everything is in-house that you do.
Correct.
And not only that, but you give back to the community as well by being involved with these different organizations. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, is to discuss your involvement, because recently there was a pilot program that was brought out by the city of Reno, right?
Correct.
And there's a long name associated with this, so I'm going to read it here real quick. It is the Tenant Issues and Concerns Citizens Advisory Board meeting. Now, there's a lot going on with this, and it just started. So give us a little feedback on what this actually is.
Yeah, so basically, one of the members of the city council decided that with everything going on in the rental space, both from a shortage of housing, evictions, kind of how everything's been progressing in the city of Reno, they felt that there needed to be a committee that could address these concerns, could help educate the city council on what's going on, and even educate our own community. So each council member was enabled to nominate 2 members to this committee, and the mayor was able to nominate 2 as well. So basically, we had our first meeting last month to start discussing what our objectives are going to be and how we're going to move this committee forward.
And that's interesting too, because you do hear a lot of talk about rent control. You hear a lot of talk about affordability and how these really play into the marketplace right now.
Correct.
And what's interesting too is I think what a lot of people don't realize is not only tenants, but owners need to have representation in this committee. And I know there was a significant push by NAIOP and BANN to get an individual like yourself that's multifaceted on the board, just to make sure that owners are well represented, right?
Correct. Yeah, because, you've got laws that are going to pass to protect tenants, and you've got laws that are going to pass, hopefully, to protect owners as well. And if we're not being represented, I don't think the city council necessarily thinks of some of the issues that we run into as owners.
Yeah.
The damage that gets done, the time that it takes us to recover the money from those damages. So I think we just need to make sure that we're being represented out there.
Absolutely.
And that they're thinking about both sides of this, since there's a lot of money at stake.
Absolutely, there is, And I think your point on education is huge, right? So, recently I had a chance to present for a multifamily symposium that we put together in addition to the Institute for Real Estate Management's forecast, right? And it's interesting looking at the dynamic of this market from all these new units that are coming online, but yet at the same token, rents are still increasing.
Right.
Right?
And you're still seeing a lot of the, let's buy old, move everybody out, rehab, and then try to get the, those same rent levels.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the increase that's happening is really this rehab that's happening. And what we want to make sure we're able to do is, one, provide people a place to live, make sure that they can afford a place to live. At the same time, we don't want to stop that rehabbing from taking place. Otherwise, our neighborhoods end up old. You get that property that's sitting at the end of your street that's just dilapidated because the owners choose not to put money in or can't afford to. If you've got rent control in place or some sort of hindrance to them recovering their costs of doing it.
So let's jump back to this committee here. Now, even though last month was the first official meeting of this committee, what are some of the points that were brought up that are kind of the goals moving forward on items that want to be addressed?
So a lot of things was education, both from a tenant side and a landlord side. I mean, landlords need to be educated on not only the laws, but on just kind of the correct way to handle their property and to handle the tenants that are in there. Tenants need to understand what the laws are, both that protect them and the laws, to understand that whatever the landlord might be doing might be legal. We need to be evaluating that. We need to evaluate whether or not the laws are the correct laws, or if there's additional laws that should be put in place to protect both sides of this transaction.
And it's interesting. We had quite a few laws that came through the pipeline that actually changed and updated some of the landlord-tenant relations. And quite frankly, the majority of the laws that we're seeing are more tenant-friendly.
Correct.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. To your point, it's a matter of education, right? Because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the law's already in there. Right. That people need to follow that protect both the landlord and the tenant. It's just a matter of going through that.
Correct.
And individuals like yourself that, might have had a fee-based property management company or does something internally with management, you're up to speed on that. But a lot of owners aren't.
A lot of owners aren't. I mean, we've got an owner right now that's, looking to move back into their single family home and has asked us to get the tenant out. Hey, we need them out next week because we're moving back.
Yeah. You just can't do that.
You can't do that, right?
So.
And it's owners like that one need the education, and two, I think give a bad reputation for landlords because Absolutely. It seems like they're not taking the tenants' livelihood into consideration, and so it's really up to the property managers and I think our community to start educating these people on what it means to be a responsible landlord.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because really going back to the idea of rent control, right? That dirty word of rent control.
Right.
Initially, when this committee was formed, there really wasn't landlord or owner representatives, and I think it's important going back to you being on this because rent control is something that's put on the table. Now, a lot of times it's shot down, but more and more so you're finding that people are looking at rent control.
Correct.
Now, when I see a committee like this formed by the city of Reno, I get concerned that the end goal would be to a rent control style, outcome. Am I wrong in that, or should I be concerned?
I think the concern is important.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely that, we're seeing it in many states. You got Oregon, you got California all passing rent control. You've got New York with their rent control that went through that's decimating their older properties right now.
Statewide, absolutely.
And so I think we just have to be aware that it's happening. And I think to the extent that our voices can be heard, we might not be able to stop it, but we can at least weigh in and have a role in this decision.
Fantastic. So what are some of the other concerns that were brought up as part of this committee?
Homelessness obviously was something that we're talking about. Price gouging was brought up, which I think leads into the rent control discussion. And really just a lot of education and tenant qualification study was one that was brought up. What should we be saying a tenant needs to qualify to rent in our community? And is there standards we can set related to that?
That's an interesting point because most management companies do have standards that are set that are kind of industry-wide, but some owners might have different standards that are a little bit higher level than others. What would be some of the standards that you would see with a particular tenant when you're evaluating a tenant?
So from our perspective, when we evaluate a tenant, we look at, what's their income versus the rent.
Uh-huh.
So I know out in the marketplace, you see either 2.5 times or 3 times is very common. Their ability to, just afford the security deposit, and what's their credit score.
Yeah.
And then we also look at, do they have prior evictions? A prior eviction can actually, hurt a tenant's ability to find a new place. And so I think as people are thinking about evictions and as this whole committee goes through, you need to understand that if you're evicted, there's a good chance you're not finding another property for quite some time. I mean, it's almost like a bankruptcy.
Fascinating.
So,
Do you know if the general public was aware of this committee before it went out, or was it something that was...
it was brought up in council meetings, so I think
Okay.
people that are at the council or listening to the council, reading the minutes, those involved, I think, are aware of it. The rest of the community, I don't think very many people are aware of it. I know from the ownership side and the BANN NAIOP side, it was really us starting to do a local lobbying and having our executive directors at all of these meetings that really brought this to our attention right away, and we could get involved.
So basically, there's 2 representatives for every council member plus 2 for the mayor.
Correct.
Right? Which means that if you're an owner, you really can't be involved in this particular committee because you have to be a member of it. But as an owner, you do need to be as involved as possible because of the new laws coming out, because of the changes that we're seeing in the marketplace, and you have to protect your asset. So Dan, if I was an owner and I wanted to know a little bit more about this committee, or if I wanted to be just more involved, with what's going on in the city from a political standpoint and from a legislative standpoint, how do I do that?
So the committee's open to the public, so you can come and sit at the committee. There, like every city council meeting, it falls under the open meeting laws of Nevada.
Okay.
So the meeting takes place, I think they're trying for the 3rd Tuesday of every month from 3 to 5.
Okay.
Or you can see it down at the 6th floor conference room at City Hall.
So City Hall, Thursdays.
Tuesdays.
Or Tuesdays.
Yep.
At what time?
3rd Tuesday of the month.
3rd Tuesday.
From 3 to 5 is when they've scheduled
From
it
3
right
to
now.
5. Okay, there you go. That's how you could be involved. Now, assuming that you attend these upcoming, meetings, can you be involved from a standpoint of giving your opinion, or is it just more so observation?
There is an open time at towards the end of the meeting for public comment.
Okay.
So you can make public comment. You can make it known. You can contact me as an owner, as an investor. If you're concerned in our community, reach out to me. You can get to me through Jesse, or just meet me at Action Properties or TriEx Development / Strategies. I'm more than happy to hear what you guys have to say and convey it at the meeting. The other way to be involved, obviously, is to participate in the multifamily committee for BANN or NAIOP.
Absolutely.
Because I will be giving a recap at those meetings.
Fantastic. And those are great meetings as well. And you get a lot of business professionals that are involved in multifamily coming to those meetings and giving their opinion and feedback, and that are very active in the marketplace. So if you get a chance to go to those meetings, they're open invites as well.
They're open invites.
Okay, excellent.
So,
Does this committee have any teeth for prospective legislation?
at this point, I don't believe so, other than that it will be advising the council.
Okay.
So depending on how this evolves, since it is so young in its development, I could see council members relying on us, relying on the committee to make decisions. But it's not, right now, it's not set to give, staff opinions or anything on what we should do.
Okay.
That's really
Do you think
just
that's the eventual goal with this committee?
I think it'll evolve that direction.
Okay.
Because I think they're going to be looking for input, and I think the council members aren't sure what to do either. And so everyone's trying to figure out how do we go about this. And so a committee like this is, weighted between, you've got tenants on it, you've got landlords on it.
Sure.
You got property managers on it. So hopefully we've got a good enough diversity from a group perspective that we'll be able to give some thought.
Fantastic.
Because I don't think it's a matter of stopping all the laws. That's not our goal as ownership or as NAIOP and BANN. It's a matter of just having our voice heard in those laws so that our concerns can be addressed in the same laws that address tenant concerns.
Yeah.
So it really is just kind of coming together to come up with what these laws and what this legislation should look like going forward, if there is any.
Fascinating. And it goes back to education as well. Like, for example, just in 2019 alone, we had 3,000 new multifamily units hit. We had roughly 2,000 single family homes. We have a lot of inventory coming on this market. And what a lot of people don't realize that might be anti-growth or might be, kind of a NIMBY, not in my backyard, is that the Class A product of today is the affordability stock of tomorrow. So we need to have growth, but we need to have sustainable growth, right? And although we might be going through a period right now where rents are, albeit at an all-time high, right? With new inventory coming online, those rents will eventually be suppressed, and it'll eventually make their way down to the B and C product, depending on our population and our wage growth in this marketplace. So, those are the type of items that I think, need to be explained to those that are in a position of power to create new legislation, because ultimately that does play a factor in this market. And to your point, rent control's thrown out there.
Right.
And we don't want that to be the end result, because that doesn't help anyone.
It doesn't help.
Yeah.
It doesn't help the tenants long term. It doesn't help the owners, and it doesn't help our marketplace.
Yeah.
Property taxes, everything.
Yeah.
So we've got to be thinking about that impact. I highly doubt New York was thinking about the impact of property taxes.
And they're
when
getting
they
hit
made that
hard
change.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
They were saying a 50% reductions in values in those areas that were affected.
Yeah.
That's
Well, not
gonna
only is
affect
there a
property tax.
reduction in value, but there's a reduction in quality of product,
Right.
right?
'Cause-
In other words, an owner's not going to want to go in there and put money into an asset that's not going to return a decent amount. And
Right.
unfortunately, you see dilapidation, you see a lack of upkeep, right? And it's not just all the owner's fault. It's a combination of this whole sphere of influence.
Right. Taxes continue to go up, fees continue to go up. We can't say rents can't go up to offset those.
Sure.
I mean, just look at sewer fees over the last, 3 to 5 years. It's gone up.
Yeah.
It affects every multifamily owner out there, and if you can't recover that through rents, then it has to come out of maintenance.
It does. It absolutely does. And Dan, I know you're extremely involved in the community, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, because I think this is really important that people understand that committees out there like this are being formed, and they are going to have some sort of impact, one way or the other legislatively. So, to have reasonable voices like yourself that understand the market from the full aspect, because you do acquire, you do manage, and you do have a construction part of it, and you are involved,
Right.
with different committees that are associated with government affairs. It's important to have voices like yours heard. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
So Dan, if someone would like to get a hold of you in regards to any component of the properties that they have, or the market itself, or they want to learn more about this type of committee, how do they go about doing that?
Probably the best way to do it is to email info@actionpropertiesnv.com. That's an email address that's monitored by the entire office.
Excellent.
So it'll get to me if I can help.
Wonderful.
So-
Well, once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Pleasure.